Antony Loewenstein is a journalist and author of the book, The Palestine Laboratory. He joins me now live from Sydney, Australia. Good to see you again, Antony. I want to talk with you about facial recognition as well in a moment. But first, this reporting by Plus 972 magazine about this AI system. And it says that, humans may be taking 20 seconds to confirm the AI data. Israel says it doesn't use it to make life and death decisions, but you've reported extensively on Israeli military tech. What do you make of the reporting?
I think it's very credible, and the journalist behind it, Yuval Abraham, has a good track record. He's an Israeli journalist, so I think the reports are credible. And essentially what the report says in great detail, it's an 8,000-word story, which follows up another story he did a few months ago, which also explained how AI was being used by Israel. Essentially, the overriding message is that after October 7, Israel, and this is a quote from one of his sources, was looking for revenge. And Israel was looking for targets. And over many, many months, they were getting that information, huge amounts of data from their own intelligence, from drones, from Americans who also were providing information from Pine Gap, which is a US military base in the centre of Australia, which has also been used by the Americans to help the Israelis. All this data feeds into a system. And what essentially the report shows, this is also backed up by my own reporting in the last years, because Israel's been using AI in warfare before October 7, not on this scale though, is that precision is not the aim here. That the idea was to go after potentially low-level Hamas operatives. It's important to note that how is it defined what a Hamas operative actually is? And civilian casualties were not a concern. And as soon as this report came out a few days ago, international lawyers and the UN expressed profound concern because without proportionality, these are war crimes, mass war crimes, and tens of thousands of people died in the first months based on this.
Yeah. There was also New York Times reporting on the widespread use of facial recognition that was picked up by the Israeli media and elsewhere as well. You've written in your book about this technology and the company quoted in the article. What are your chief concerns about facial recognition use in the context of Gaza, where, by all accounts, the reporting is it's been very widespread?
Hugely widespread, and facial recognition technology has been used across Palestine for years. As you say, I looked into this particularly in the West Bank, and I'd been seeing footage, both video and photos, after October 7 from Gaza of Israeli tech that was presumably for this kind of purpose, facial recognition technology. And we've discovered through that New York Times report, but also my own sources, that this is done to document every single Palestinian there. So the 2.3 million Palestinians, their information, their dates, their biometric data, and it's not done with consent. It's important to note that. And it also says in that story, which is also backed up my own reporting, that often it's imprecise, that it's trying to find, so Israel claims, Hamas operatives, when often Israel does not actually know who is Hamas and who is not. And more importantly, how they define that is incredibly overly broad. And the company behind it you mentioned, Coresight, has worked extensively with repressive police forces around the world and including occupation forces in the West Bank. So a pretty dark record.
Yeah, and to the point you were just making there have been several Palestinians detained who say they had been previously cleared or that there was no reason for their detention. We know from other cases around the world that facial recognition technology is far from infallible. But the thing is, in Gaza, misidentification could mean not just wrongful detention, it could mean death.
And in fact, there's been a lot of reports in the last few days by Israeli media, particularly Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper, which has found that some of the prisons that Israel has been running in Israel itself or indeed detention camps in Gaza. So one doctor, Israeli doctor who was a whistleblower, he was anonymous in this report, essentially found that the torture by Israeli forces on Palestinians was so bad they had to amputate limbs. This is how bad it's, and as another journalist called it, Israel is having its own Guantanamo Bays, which is totally sealed off, no Red Cross visits, no investigation, no oversight. This is what's happening away from the public eye.
Yeah, and again, some of those prisoners were then released without charge, without any other accusation. And if they were picked up with facial recognition, that would be enormously worrying. We're almost out of time. I wanted to ask you real quick, though. Your book, The Palestine Laboratory, talks about Israel, in a way, testing technologies in the Palestinian territories and using the results to boost exports of that technology. Real quick, is that what you're seeing with this sort of stuff?
Well, hugely, to the point where we're already seeing stories in the international press of Israeli AI companies that are battle tested in Gaza, that's their words, trying to sell them, promote them, that they have been battle tested. There was a major Israeli arms fair, a Singapore arms fair 1 month ago, where Israeli tech has, again, had been battle tested in Palestine, was going to be sold globally. This is what's happening. These are being tested live as we speak on Palestinians for a global market. So you will see in months and years ahead huge amounts of this repressive tech in other conflicts around the globe, unless there is an arms embargo imposed, as the UN Human Rights Council last week called for, against Israel.
Fascinating. Anthony, always good to see you. Anthony Loewenstein there
Thank you.
in Sydney. Appreciate it.
Thank you.